they just didn't want to talk about it because it was a traumatic episode for a lot of those families who lived within the Delta, especially in the community where Emmett was murdered. And so it was a hush-hush thing. And what I found out later, and many people would not talk about Till. You mentioned Till, it was like kryptonite. Nobody talks about Emmett Till. But I would have to say the first time I realized there was more to the story, I came across an elderly man who lived in the community. And he said, you know, boy, there were more people involved.
Really?
Yeah, and that's when I started digging more into the microfilm and looking at the newspapers. But the black press had this information all along, though. I have to say, Khalil, I can't take credit. It was the black press who preserved all this information on Till and already knew there were more people involved with the murder.
And how early did you find evidence of the black press reporting on additional conspirators?
Well, I would have to say it was right after my experience going into the Delta when I started gathering materials to research. I really took a look at all these articles, not just from Ebony and Jet, but I started collecting all these articles from different newspapers, digging into those archives, pulling the microfilm, and it was in that microfilm and those newspaper articles where they talked about the men who were involved, where they fingered more than one person, more than the two men that everybody thought.
So Milam and Bryant were the two who stood trial.
The two known assailants were J.W. Milam and Roy Bryant. And that's basically all that history wrote about this case, and it's just these two men. Again, it wasn't until I started studying the works of people like Jimmy Hicks of the Baltimore Afro-American newspaper, who became, he was here working with the Amsterdam News as well. Jimmy Hicks, Simeon Booker, so many of those great heroes.
And were they doing, I mean, this seems an obvious answer, but were they doing investigative journalism on the ground?
Yes,
or were they relying on wire services?
No.
Because Simeon spent a lot of time in the South, right?
Simeon spent a lot of time dealing with these unsolved civil rights, well, I should say unsolved, these murders at that time, civil rights murders at that time. And he's amazing because he's still alive and with us today, 96.
Wow.
I'll see him on the 23rd.
That's great. Give him my regards.
I will do. But I have to say the black press had it going on. They were there at the scene of these types of murders, especially the Emmett Till murder case. They covered it and they investigated behind the scenes. In fact, and I don't want to speak ahead of time, it was Jimmy Hicks' works that I studied to get the case reopened.